Suppose you're a cybersecurity expert who works for a government agency, which is charged with the job of protecting the nation. Your job might involve identifying vulnerabilities in software and hardware components and exploiting them, and also perhaps disclosing some of those vulnerabilities to affected vendors. Dartmouth College has developed a system called discx, disclose or exploit. The goal of discx is to help analysts and organizations make a decision when they find a new vulnerability. Should we exploit it in an attack, or should we disclose it to the affected vendor? As a cybersecurity expert working for your organization, you will see this screen when you log in. You have two choices. You can upload a new vulnerability that you've discovered, or you can look at a vulnerability that either you or someone else in the organization has discovered and make some comments on it. Let us suppose that you are doing the latter. So let's say you choose a particular vulnerability, such as this one here, you click on it, and you hit submit. You now end up with this screen. In this demonstration, we show some vulnerabilities that exist in the real world. So we're pretending that you have discovered this vulnerability and assigned it this number, you or someone in your organization. Based on what people in your organization have said in the past, they may have said that the overall base score for this vulnerability is 9.8 on a 0 to 10 point scale, suggesting that this is a pretty severe vulnerability. It may say that the impact of this vulnerability on an organization is 5.9, again on the same 0 to 10 scale, and it may say that the exploitability of this vulnerability is not so easy, it's not that easy to exploit, it's got a score of 3.9. You may or may not agree with these assessments, and so you may choose to change these. You may say, well, I don't think this base score should be 10, I think it should be 9. The impact score should probably be 5, and exploitability is far harder than people think. I think it's a 2. And then you can submit this and update it, and you will see that this has all changed over here. Down below the screen are a set of other parameters associated with this vulnerability. This tells you that this vulnerability, the product in which this vulnerability existed, was created in the August to September 2018 timeframe. The vulnerability in question was not discovered till the end of this discovery timeframe, namely February 2019. So that's when you discovered this vulnerability. But now you have to tell your organization a whole set of things, such as how long will it take to develop an exploit for this vulnerability? You might go down here and say, well, I think it's not going to be 22 days, but it's going to be 50 days. You might say that you think the vulnerability should be exploited for 20 days. And you can submit a prediction, assuming you've agreed with the other settings that are here. You can see that this figure has changed now. We can also look at other kinds of visualizations of these parameters here. So for example, here it tells us that in the previous person who entered information about this vulnerability estimated a mean of 22 days and 4.4 days. And you have updated this to, let's say, 50 days and a standard deviation of 10. So in other words, you think it'll take somewhere between 40 and 60 days to develop this new exploit based on this vulnerability. You can change your estimation, and now you can see that this histogram has changed. Let us continue. And we now return to the screen we were on previously. From here, we can also ask the system we can also leave some comments about this particular vulnerability. So we could go in here, and here there's the discussion board about this particular vulnerability. You might leave a comment saying, hey, this vulnerability in the Cisco router model XXX is very severe and may help us attack adversary A. You can now publish your comment, and other members of your team can see your comment. We can also, at this stage, go to the strategy page and say, tell us what we should do with this vulnerability. Should we disclose it immediately? Should we exploit it for some time? If so, for how long should we exploit it? And when should we disclose it? So right now, it's computing the strategy. and it'll hopefully tell us the answer in a moment. So it tells us, yes, you should exploit this vulnerability, the yes part here, and you should exploit it for 96 days. We can now return to the overall homepage and look at the second scenario where we're pretending to be the ones who found a new vulnerability. So again, let's say you're a cybersecurity expert, you found a new vulnerability, you want to upload some information about it, you click upload, select, and now you can give it a new vulnerability ID, my vulnerability 11928. The time for discovery is 77 days. The time you expect for exploit development is 20 days. The cost of development is 25, and the reward for disclosure is 10. And now you can then publish the comments. I can also add some comments saying this is a new vulnerability in Microsoft Office version XYZ, and I expect this to help against adversary B. I can publish this comment, which goes into a database, and I can also submit information about this vulnerability. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our work on making an informed decision about whether to exploit or disclose.